Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you about action word problems and how you know if you need to add or subtract to solve the problem. So when we have an action word problem, that means something is actually happening in the problem. So you always have an amount that you start with, you have a change or something that happens, either you add some or you take some away, and then you have the result that you end up with. So let's look at this problem down here together. It says there were 3 bears. So that tells me what I started with. So right here, I'm going to put a 3 because I know I started with 3 bears. Then it says 2 bears left. So we haven't decided what we need to solve yet, but we know the change is 2. So 2 bears left. And then it's asking how many bears are there now. That's the result. That's what we're trying to figure out. So I need to think, to figure out this result, am I going to add or subtract? You just have to read the clues and think what's happened in the story to figure out if you need to add or subtract. So if we think about this story, we started with 3 bears. So I'll put my 3 bears right here. And then what happened? It said 2 bears left. So I'm going to take 2 bears away, okay? When we take an amount away, or when we start with amount and we separate it, that means we're subtracting because the amount is getting smaller, okay? So in this problem, I would need to put the minus sign here to figure out how many are left. If I do 3 minus 2, I end up with 1, and that matches what happened here. We had 1 bear left. So this was a problem that we needed to use subtraction to solve. Now, if the problem had been different, if the problem had said there was 1 bear, 2 more bears came, and it would be asking how many bears are there now, we would need to use addition to solve that because we joined 2 amounts. We had the 1 here and we had the 2 here, and we joined them. That means we had an amount and the amount got bigger. We added more to it. So if it's a separating problem, you subtract, and if it's a joining problem, you add. There were some bears in the cave. Some more bears joined them. How many bears are in the cave now? Okay, guys, I'm going to act this problem out, and I want you to think if you need to add or subtract to find the answer. So it said there were some bears in the cave, and then some more bears came. So I want you to think, are we making the amount bigger? Are we joining 2 amounts, or are we making the amount smaller by separating? If you're at home, pause the video to think about what your answer is. If you're at school, your teacher can stop the video for a second for you to discuss it as a class. That's right, we'd use addition because more bears joined them. Let's try another question. There were some bears at the pond. Some bears left to go climb trees. How many bears are at the pond now? Okay, let's think about what happened in this problem. It said there were some bears at the pond, and then some bears left to go climb trees. So what happened in this problem? Are we joining 2 amounts, and is the amount at the pond getting bigger? Or are we separating the amount and making the amount at the pond smaller? Think about what happened. Would you add or subtract to find the solution to this problem? If you're at home, take a second to pause and think about your answer. If you said subtract, you were right. The amount got smaller. We took some away, so we were separating them. So that means we would subtract. Let's try another question. There were some bears in the forest. Some of them went to nap in the cave. How many bears are in the forest now? Okay, so we started with some bears in the forest, and then some of the bears went to nap in the cave. I want you to pause and think. To find out how many bears are in the forest now, would you add or subtract? Is the amount of bears in the forest getting bigger or smaller? If you're at home, take a second to pause and think about your answer. If you said subtract, you are correct. The amount is getting smaller because we're separating it. Some of the bears went away. So we need to subtract to find out how many are still in the forest. Let's try another question. Some bears were swimming in the pond. Some more bears came to the pond. How many bears are in the pond now? Okay, let's think about what happened. There were some bears swimming on the pond, or in the pond. And then some more bears came to the pond. How are you going to solve this problem? What happened? Did the amount get bigger? Or did the amount get smaller? Are we adding more bears, or are we taking some bears away? If you said addition, you're correct. We need to add because we joined two amounts. We started with some bears and then we added more bears to the pond. Good job, guys. Just remember, when you're trying to add or subtract, you just need to think, what's happening in the story? Am I joining two amounts and making it bigger? Or am I separating and making the amount smaller? If you're joining, you add. If you're separating, you subtract.